All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate you giving us your time to learn about what's new in data observability. We're excited to share with you some new capabilities, as well as the new capabilities, the result, and the business impact that they have. So with me today, I have members of our product marketing team and our product management team, and they're going to go through the capabilities and the business impact, and also give you quick product demos as well, so you can actually see the product live. So a couple housekeeping things. We will have time for questions at the end. So if you have questions, please do put them in the chat and we'll take them at the end. So with that, let's be cognizant of everyone's time, and I'll hand it over to Preeti, who is a director of product marketing, and she'll take it away.
Thank you, Loretta, and welcome everyone to the webinar today. So a quick look at the agenda, so just so that you can expect what you can see in the webinar today. So basically, we'll first have a quick look at what are the 5 key assets of any business today. So and then we'll look at some of the challenges that all the businesses across different verticals and different organizations face because of the complex data landscapes. Then we'll look at what is data observability, and then we'll look at the 5 different observations that sort of align with the latest Gartner report, and we'll show you how Acceldata is the only data observability solution that covers all these 5 different observations or areas of observability. So and after that we'll discuss with the 3 superstars we have today, Samir, Chris, and Ankur, who are our excellent product managers managing many different aspects of our ADOC platform. So that's our cloud platform that we offer. They'll tell us what's new in the solution. They're very excited about it, and at the very end, like Loretta mentioned, we'll look at the Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can please let us know in the chat, and we'll address it at the very end of the webinar. So let's first look at what are the 5 key assets of any enterprise today, right? So basically today, as you all know, and that's the reason you are here, your data is one of the most valuable assets in your organization, right? So it would be, and also if you think about it, it would be impossible to extract value from your data unless you have robust and fully functional and optimal pipelines. So data flow and pipelines are something else that you should be thinking of. Those are one of your key assets today. And the actual data users, right? We cannot ignore them. So they are also very important. We need to ensure that they are optimally using the data and they're getting the most value out of it and at the lowest cost. So there's so many dimensions to it that you need to consider. And also you need to manage your data infrastructure and compute and the usage of your compute. And there's so many other performance metrics that you need to manage effectively. And the 5th dimension or the aspect that you need to consider are the data costs and the cloud spend. You need to manage it effectively, so that has become so much more important, especially in this economy where everyone is price conscious, spend conscious. So what is this you're looking at right now? So basically, this is just a representation of a typical data ecosystem, right? Or a data product that you'll find across companies. So basically you have data sources on the one side. On the left hand side, you are ingesting data from many different data sources, then you're processing them, you're enriching them, and then you're putting them in some kind of a consumption zone where it's ready for a consumption for many different applications, users, ML, and AI. So this is your typical flow or your typical data landscape that you see in most enterprises or most organizations. And what our customers tell us that in spite of having so many data tools, there are still many operational blind spots that they observe across the data landscape nowadays. In spite of putting so many efforts and investments and so many tools, there's still schema drift, there's latency, there's reconciliation problems, there's the big data quality problem. Then all these problems that you see across the landscape, they're still there. And on top of that, there's the overarching problem of data sprawl, right? So you see that the data has been exploding over the years. There's so much of bad data out there, it's scary. And then all that leads to failed outcomes. And then there's tech sprawl, right? There's so many tools out there that there's so much complexity that we need to manage, and all this leads to so much spend and so much cost overrun. So these are the overarching problems that all organizations are facing today. And then on top of it all, there's a lack of talent, there's a lack of good talent, it's so hard to find data engineers with the right experience, with the right industry knowledge. So basically, how do you address all this, right, as an organization? So there needs to be a better way to do this. So that's where we come in, where Acceldata comes in, where the whole concept of data observability comes in. So let's first define what it is, right? So we uh, just recently Gartner published their 2023 report, and our definition, it just aligns so well with Gartner's vision. So basically what we say is that we provide just an overarching integrated visibility over your data and your data landscapes, so that we are alerting your teams right in time to any issues that you may have related to data reliability, infrastructure problems, pipeline issues, operational issues related to your data landscape, and the resulting cost and spend issues, right? So it's like an overarching solution. It's not one or the other, it's the entire universe across your data landscape and all those problems you saw in the previous slide that need to be addressed. So we help do that. And in addition to that, there's no point in just telling you what the issues are. We help you remediate them, right? Remediate them in time, alert you, notify you, involve all the people who are required to fix that issue, and ideally take it a step further and prevent such future occurrences. So that's where you get the most value of out of such solutions. And as a market leader in this space, what we are doing is we are providing you complimentary access to the 2023 Gartner reports. If you have some free time, you might want to read this up. The link is here, and it's also on our website. Let's look at what are these 5 dimensions that Gartner talks about, and what Acceldata actually addresses on our data observability platform, right? So here we are looking at this data dominated world, right? So remember the 5 assets we talked about in the previous slide. So Gartner basically confirms what we offer in our platform, and all our 3 product managers will be excitedly telling you about how exactly we cover it. But just to give you an overview, right? So obviously, like we discussed, we need to observe the data itself right here. We need to ensure that the quality and the reliability of data, we have to ensure that, and make sure there is no data drift, and then alert and notify if there are any issues with the data reliability or data drift or any data issues, and then proactively prevent such occurrences in the future. That's also important. And then as we talked, then we observe the data flow and the pipeline. So Acceldata does that as well. So it's not just focused on the data aspect, but on the data flow and the pipelines as well. And our product managers will be talking about that as well, making sure that the pipelines are not broken, there's no bottlenecks, there's no schema drift. So continuously monitoring it and bringing up issues through alerts and notifications, helping customers fix and preventing such issues in the pipelines. So basically your pipelines are moving smoothly and running at the speed of your business. That's what you want, right? Running at the speed of your business. And then, as we discussed, the data users, observing them continuously, making sure they have the right access, not too much, not too less, just right, and they're running the optimal queries as well, helping them, notifying them, helping them proactively, so that your business is functioning optimally, right? And then, like we discussed, the infrastructure and compute, right? Making sure it's being used optimally, making sure there's no underutilized resources or too much over provisioning, or making sure that we alert the people and we take care of all these issues. And then sending proactive recommendations, so that if you why should we expect you to spend time and dig into them when we have this intelligence built into the solution? So we provide you these recommendations, you just click and fix it, right, and prevent it. And all this optimal observability, what does this lead to? So this ultimately leads to spend optimizations, and we also provide cost allocations, insights into that. So we have several dashboards and multiple different levels of drill downs into tracking costs and spend at multiple levels, at the org, cost center, teams, projects, down to the users, and down to the query level as well. So that kind of granular visibility, giving the breadth and depth of insight, that's just so invaluable these days. So our solution is the only one that spans across all the 5 observations, as I mentioned before. So let's look at we have sort of listed, the 4 of us, we have listed out, just a few of our key features that, or key capabilities or value that we provide in these 5 areas from the Acceldata solution point of view. So we'll be talking to the different product managers now. So let's talk to Chris Cozy first. So he focuses on data reliability, pipelines, and data aspects of our solution. So welcome, Chris. And let me ask you a question. Can you tell us how Acceldata aligns our product capabilities around monitoring data content?
Sure. Thanks, Preeti. So I think if I look at how Gartner is defining data content, and they also have the data flow and pipelines side of it, our data reliability product really spans across both of those Gartner categories. So it's all centered around a focus on giving users of our platform, as you said, the tools to proactively identify issues before they become problems for the downstream data consumers. For us in our platform, this revolves around understanding, starting with the data assets themselves, how reliable they are they being monitored, are they covered by validations? And our platform breaks that down into a variety of buckets of checks or validations that we sort of call the dimensions of data reliability. So kind of just touching on those, data quality, this is where we capture the either data engineering focused or business rule focused checks that let us certify the quality of data assets. We then take care of reconciliation, which is a similar type of check, more to ensure that data is flowing through the multiple layers of the data platform. So think of as you're processing from raw to staging to the gold, the for consumption warehouse tables. These are checks that make sure your row counts are stable and expected, and then also tying out that key data points weren't dropped in columns across that process. Then data drift. This is more of a statistical check on the data, on metrics we derive from profiling the data. More of an indicator on how your data is changing, and there might be some thresholds associated with that where you'd like to be alerted if it changes too much. Then we're also looking at the freshness and volume of data as it's being delivered to the asset. So how is the asset growing? When is the asset growing? And does anything look sort of out of sorts or unexpected there? And then lastly, everything schema related. So the platform will alert when additions or removals or updates to schemas in the data sets we're looking at are observed. We then take these dimensions and roll them up into what we call in our tool the Asset 360. So a big ask from our clients was helping to wrap up everything we do into an overall summary of that data, of that asset, of the reliability of that asset. And we do this with what we call the data reliability score, which is kind of one score that gives us a groundwork to understand how that data asset is trending over time. So kind of a reference point we can easily monitor. We use that internal to the tool. We've also seen that drive a lot of external value. For example, we see customers pair that with an enterprise data catalog and use that to power some of the capabilities there, whether that's how you flag data there or message out to data consumers. So aside from those dimensions, there's obviously a set of capabilities that kind of bridge between them, as you'd expect. Data profiling is kind of a basis we use for assessment of the data, both for our out-of-the-box recommendations and then a general understanding as you look to implement some of these checks, identify patterns, semantic meanings in the data, things like that. Data lineage is obviously important for us to illustrate upstream and downstream impact of issues. And then one item that we're going to demonstrate later today is starting to bring this concept of the Asset 360 up to the whole platform. So a more global reporting on your data assets, whether that's all of them or a particular domain that you as a stakeholder have some interest in.
That's excellent, Chris. Thank you for such a beautiful overview, and looking forward to looking at Asset 360 and the overall view into the asset from multiple different angles, right? So, given that perspective you just explained, can you tell us how do our users interact with our Acceldata platform, and also please explain how we have operationalized data reliability for our users and made it a reality for them.
Yeah, so that's kind of one of the interaction points. So we're always trying to deliver the right tools for the job. So of course, there's a focus in the platform of what can we identify automatically? Can we drive insights from profiling? That's kind of what I mentioned, the understanding semantics of data, patterns. Is it PII? Is it a credit card? Can we identify anomalies in this data as we kind of watch it over time? But the operational side is, an approach we've seen driving a lot of value with our clients that extends beyond that, no or low touch observability. So beyond the kind of the passive observing, and bringing our platform in as a decision point within data pipelines themselves. So this can mean several things to us. One is leveraging our tool to certify the actual records we're looking at, and then taking action, routing the good ones down, continuing on in the pipeline, capturing the bad ones for a different path, whether that's investigation or repair, or in many cases sending back to other vendors, depending on the use case. Putting it into the pipeline that way, kind of a second option there is, if the data load hits a certain threshold of poor quality or invalid records, actually stopping the pipeline and not letting any of that go through. As far as that, it's also important to consider, where we do that operationalization. So one of our core capabilities really is we can perform these checks upstream, even to the extent of running them on files to catch issues as early in the flow as possible. We call this, and we kind of live by the motto, shift left, which to us means that the cost of fixing an issue is amplified in time and effort, and then even the literal cost when you get to the consumption-based platforms, it kind of gets amplified at each stage of the pipeline. So it would be great to catch that when data is landing, if possible, instead of several stages deeper where it's potentially been heavily transformed for consumption and might be harder to recover from. So aside of that interaction with the platform, another focus is how our users interact with actually building out these checks. So I think our focus there would be, can we get through 80% of the validation that we need to do with no code or, extremely low code, point and click type of application, but then have the tools necessary for, the more complex checks we've run into, whether that's analysts writing SQL validations or even, for the data engineer exposing something they're more comfortable with, Scala, Java, Python, for the most complex types of checks that we might want to apply.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. And also you mentioned operationalizing the policies, right? Bringing them into pipelines, correct? So given that focus on data flow and pipelines, are we working towards other goals here? And what else is important?
Yeah, certainly. So, much of what we're observing is around the data itself, and then that naturally starts to extend to the pipelines that are responsible for, accurately and on time delivering that data. So, our approach here is twofold. As you said, the first is, how can we take part in that pipeline with our validations? But then the opposite side is, we're also looking at this from, the observability of pipelines angle as well. Can we provide a view into the performance and health of, the suite of data pipelines that might be at an organization, and obviously tying that into what we know about the reliability of their data assets. So to us, that means several things. It's always growing. In fact, the first is providing that single pane of glass for the organization's pipelines, regardless of where they're running. Many of our clients have multiple pipeline tools in their organization, varying levels of visibility into them. Then on top of that, providing monitoring of key pipeline SLAs, pipeline status, metadata or metrics admitted by the pipelines, really all about tying into the identification and surfacing of issues through that alerting framework, proactively. So trying to answer questions like, did the pipeline start on time? Is the duration of the pipeline trending in the wrong direction? Did we produce an unexpected amount of records at a specific stage? So all kinds of those questions can be answered and alerted upon in the tool. And then the final piece is, again, similar to the data lineage of assets, providing a run over run kind of data aware lineage for the pipelines themselves tied to the assets they produce.
Absolutely invaluable. Yes, thank you. Thanks, Chris. It gives us an overall picture and looking forward to the demo later on. So now let's talk to our second product manager, Samir Narkhede. So he's the expert brain behind the spend intelligence, cost optimization, and operational intelligence aspects of our solution, of our platform. So welcome, Samir.
Thank you. Thank you, Preeti.
So now we have a question for you, Samir. So when it comes to compute and data observability, there are multiple personas here, who can benefit from it. So can you talk about it and what are the enterprise features that these personas are looking for from a data observability solution?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So when we talk about enterprises, right, supporting multiple personas within that enterprise is the key from the infrastructure and compute point of view, right? Although the metadata that they look at is the same, right? So multiple personas, as in there is FinOps person, there is an exec who wants to get an overview, or sometimes we have seen there is a center of excellence department, right? Completely separate department who's working, who's trying to do something with compute or infrastructure metadata. There are data engineers, data scientists themselves who are creating the workloads, deploying the workloads, making sure they are running stably. And the administrator, right, who is the platform owner, or who wants to ensure, who wants to govern the usage is done the right way, right? Especially it's critical when it comes to cloud data platforms, right? There are so many things that you want to basically govern in that case, right? So now let's if we talk about the metadata, right? What is this metadata? It's the workload generated metadata mostly, like what queries, what are the jobs that are running on the cloud data platform, who ran it, how long they ran, which clusters they ran on, what is the size of these clusters, right? So that is one type of metadata that can be acted on, that can be observed and acted on, right? The second is the configurations, right? You can have account being configured for the users to be used in some way. The compute, right? Warehouses, clusters, your pipelines, factories, they are configured. There are a lot of tunables, right? So sizing or basically auto scaling factors, and all those things are tunables nowadays, right? And also the usage is important factor, right? Who is using and how is it using? What are the serverless features the users are using it, right? And are they done the right way? So the metadata is the core piece here, right? You measure the metadata, you assess the metadata, but presenting the different views and along different dimension becomes very important here, right? And so at high level, if we look at it, right, when data engineers or data scientists come to this platform and try to look at it from the infrastructure point of view, they are looking at how long their jobs are running. Are they meeting their SLAs, right? And are they running stably, right? And what can they do about it? Is there optimization required? What can they do about it? But same thing like FinOps, when he looks at that thing, or execs, when they look at it, what is the cost of these workloads and what is the value we are getting out of it, right? It's okay. I mean, you are running the workloads, but how is it being consumed, right? Is are we just ingesting, processing, making the data ready to be consumable? But what is that consumption, right? Is the investment worth it? So that is something, right? And again, from administration point of view, it is if someone is running long running queries, if someone is running jobs very frequently, but the ingestion is not happening that frequently. So administrator needs to basically aware of what's happening there, right? How can he put some guardrails? How can he put some controls? And if it is not happening the right way, how can he alert the user, right? To maybe optimize the warehouse size or optimize the cluster size. So a lot of personas looking at the same metadata, looking at different features. But what I'll say is when we look at the next level, right? If you dig down further, my costs are high. Why are my costs high? What can I do about it? What you do is you have to interact with other personas. So even though these personas are different, they are looking at different dimensions or different views. When they want to act on it, you need collaboration between these personas. And that's where, instead of having a separate utility or separate team building separate products for their features, having a single common platform, right, which is collaborative, which is a single pane of glass between your all the different personas, right, so that they can held accountable, they can understand from the same perspective. That is very important, right? And so that's where Acceldata solution is going. It's not a utilities or a domain or a persona specific tool. It's a platform that can be used by multiple personas within the enterprise.
Absolutely. It literally takes a village to make sure that everything is operational across your complex data landscape, and managing the cost, keeping it low, especially in this economy, and enabling so many different types of users with so many different needs and views required into the same metadata that you mentioned. So
Yeah. I think see the data initiatives, right? They are successful when all these personas are successful, right? And hence that platform, right? Today you might have one problem, tomorrow you will run into the second problem, and you have to be ready. You have to be proactive about it, right? Same platform solving all the issues, kind of thing.
absolutely. Well explained, Samir.
Mhm.
And if you look at the macroeconomic situation around you, right, Samir, this year has sort of been like the year of efficiencies, if we can say it subtly. And can you tell us about how our platform helps enterprises make their cloud data platforms efficient, especially with respect to cost and performance?
Yeah, that's so true, right? Like when we talk to enterprises today, I mean, yes, they have core issues to be solved, core data initiatives that need to be delivered by the data teams. But at the same time, right, these, given the year, given the macroeconomic conditions and everything, everyone is aware, everyone is asking for efficiencies, right? And so what I would say, the data observability, which was initially thought of, what is happening and why is it happening, right? So even if there are unknowns, right, that is the core key term that data observability or observability in general uses. I want to be ready for unknowns, right? So that definition has little bit changed, right? Now it's like, what is happening, why is it happening, and what can I do about it, right? And so I think the earlier 2 points you mentioned, right? There is a tech sprawl
Mhm.
and there is a shortage of talent that relates here, right? Cloud platforms for various use cases, there are multiple cloud platforms, right? So there are data warehouses, data lake houses, there are relational databases you still need, they are running on the cloud, vector databases, so many different type of things, right? Like all supported by cloud data platforms. And for a particular data team, right, to be expert, like by expertise not doesn't mean like you can use it and deliver your initiative, use it the right way, right? And all these platforms are basically churning out features, right? Every year they're expanding themselves, new features which are easy to use, which are more appropriate for a particular use cases that are coming on. But is the team on top of it, right? Do you have time to invest in building that expertise, uh, and across the stack, right? So that's the challenge there. And the solution there that is coming out, what we are seeing is automation, right? Now they are expecting, these enterprises are expecting these expertise and solutions to be built using a data observability solution, right? So automate these things, take the help of data observability solutions, uh, you know, take them as an advisor, take them as an advisor, right? So ton of features that we are building today, right? I can give an example of uh, optimizations, like you mentioned about optimizations, right? So that is something a lot of people are looking at, right? Not only how to keep the workload stable and cost efficient, but how can I optimize it, and get it further, right? So I've seen like three types of optimization. One is workload optimization, right? Whatever jobs you are writing, whatever queries you are writing, are those written efficiently, right? So in fact, SQL query optimization itself, the orchestration of these queries, how frequently are you running these queries, is it at the right frequency, because every run is costing you, right? And so that comes as a part of workload optimization. The second we are seeing is resource optimization. You are using clusters, warehouses, lot of serverless features, for example, materialized views, auto clustering, all these things, right? You are paying for it, and hence, are you using it the right way? How can we optimize it? Is it applicable on all my workloads, on all my tables? So that is something people are looking for. And third challenge is that impacts a lot is data layout itself, right? The tables that you create, are those laid out, right? Are those partitioned? Are the clustering keys, are the indexing done the right way, right? Because not only it impacts the performance of your workload, but it impacts the cost also, right? So I mean, in the demo I will be going, I'm excited to show some of the things, some of the innovations we have done, particularly in the areas of optimization. So yeah, I'll be happy to share that.
Excellent, Sami. Thank you. Yeah, it's such a good thing to have a trusted partner or a trusted advisor, like you mentioned, in the form of this solution from Acceldata, where you can focus on your business and let it take care of so many different aspects that need to be optimized and taken care of for optimal spend, right? So
Absolutely.
thank you so much, Samir. That was an excellent explanation. So next last but not the least, we'll be talking to Ankur Mundra, and he's a product manager managing the Acceldata platform itself. So the lifeblood of the solution, holding it all together, right, Ankur? So welcome,
Thank you.
welcome to you. So
Uh,
we have a question for you, Ankur. So we discussed how our Acceldata solution can help different dimensions and use cases of data observability, right? So I want to ask you now, what are some of the key elements that organizations expect to be available on our platform?
right. So, Chris and Samir talked about different personas and how organizations are dwelling into data observability. Now, one of the important factor for enterprises when we talk about data is there are set of regulations who can access that data, who can use that data, and in which way they can use that data. Now, those regulations are mostly because of the compliance and the security need for different organizations. So in turn, when we look at it, user access management becomes a mandatory, let's say, capability within a data observability platform from organization perspective, for administrator and the account owners or the data platform owners to make sure that different people, or let's say a data engineer or a data scientist or a FinOps guy, they would have a different set of let's say roles and responsibilities within the organization, and they make sure that they are just focusing on the areas where their expertise are required. Now, building one, let's say when you try to do it within in-house to build a platform of this scale, it becomes very challenging because the securities from tech perspective, it keeps on changing. So you just don't build it one, but maintaining is a bigger challenge. So with Acceldata, right, this is one of the things which we try to incorporate, right? That the platform is secure, it's compliant, and it's enterprise ready. So we bring in the element of user access management, where you can onboard users easily with your integrations, let's say a single sign-on integration with capability of SAML or LDAP, so that you don't have to worry about creating users within the platform, number one. Like the other piece is it's backed by role-based access control. So basis on the personas you have within the organizations, you can create those roles and make sure that the area of focus is not dwelling. People are just focusing on their day-to-day activity, and it's very easy for eventually for administrator to say that, hey, yeah, I know that these are the people and should be working on, let's say, just on data for flow or the pipeline, or just wanted to talk about, let's say, or work on spend optimization or infrastructure or the compute side of it. So with that granular level of control, it's a less headache at the end of the day for the administrator and the owners, right? Complying with that, when we talk about let's say compliance, right, auditing becomes one of the important piece of the platform, right? So that is also one of the key challenges when auditors are looking at different SaaS platform, that hey, how people have used it, what is the day-to-day activity a user have performed, so that in case there is a mishap, you know what really is happening within the system. So that's another piece which is really important. So yeah, and other than that, one more thing which I would like to call out, because it's a data observability platform, right? Alerts and the notification framework becomes like important, or the core aspect of the whole life cycle. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm sure your brain is bursting with ideas to tell many more things. And just in the interest of time, you have highlighted just the key aspects of the platform and perfectly explained. Thank you, Ankur. You referred to the alerts as a framework, right? Rather than just a feature or a capability. So we saw that in our discussions today, that correlating the different signals that you get, figuring out where the problem is, and alerting and notifying the right people at the right time in a timely manner. All this plays a very key role, right, in really operationalizing this data quality and data reliability aspect. So can you elaborate a little bit more on how the platform currently handles this?
Yeah, sure. So with different flavors of let's say our platform, right, which is for different personas. Let's say a data reliability is taking care of the data and the content, and let's say the spend and operational intelligence is talking about how your resources are getting utilized. So different areas of the platform is generating alerts, but the context for those alerts are very different as compared to let's say when you're looking at something like a data reliability, whether my data is reliable versus let's say a sudden spike in cost, right? So context is very different when we talk about two different elements. So when I talk about, let's say, alert as a framework, it is very important to make sure that when a user, let's say there could be a persona or let's say an account owner who would be responsible for the complete data observability platform. But when they get into the system, they have let's say they get an alert and they get into the system. So the usability perspective, right, which is what they see within let's say when alert was generated, and the actions available is not very different. So let's say if you onboard a new user and you increase the responsibility of that person, for the organizations, it become easy when you have a seamless or let's say a unified user experience at the end of the day. So hence the framework is very important, so that when you are getting alerts from different areas, it's still trying to picture it in the same manner. So the information available, it's very comprehensive, right? Then the other part to it is we have the notification framework, right? Which is what you have mentioned, that alerting and the real time. So the alert is complemented with the notification framework, right? Where organizations can choose or user can choose where they want to get notified. We support Slack, Teams, webhooks, or let's say in case they want to integrate with their existing incident manager, which is if they are using something already in their system to, let's say, triage or work on their incident which is happening. We support something like ServiceNow, where you can do a two-way integration. So whatever happens on ServiceNow, we bring that information into the system so that they are in sync. So yeah, complementing these two, the rest of the platform, it becomes really important that the timely and the information available from both notification alert perspective become one of the important elements of data observability platform.
Absolutely. And it's not, as you mentioned, it's not just a feature or just a capability. It's the
Right.
value that comes, just based on the timeliness. It can be impact of millions, or, in terms of cost, or in terms of, just the operational effectiveness. Thank you. Thank you so much, all three of you. So I guess everyone is eager and excited to see the demos now. So what we do is, first first Ankur will show a little bit on the platform side, and then we'll switch to Samir. He'll show us a lot of exciting capabilities on the spend intel and the operational intelligence side, and then Chris will wrap up with the data reliability and the pipeline observability. So with that, I'll stop sharing. So Ankur, you can share your demo system.
Yeah,
Thank
sure. So let me know once my screen is visible. So I would like to talk about, because just we are talking about alerts as a framework. So I would like to talk about that. So let's say in a day-to-day activity, you get an alert. So let's say I got an alert on Slack, and I was notified that, hey, something is really wrong within your system. So when I looked at it, let's say I get a URL or interaction which takes me to the ADOC. So I click on it and it gets login, and then this is the system where we represent what exactly is available, what really happened when, let's say, there was alert raised. So now in this particular one, there was a Databricks job which was running, and the memory utilization for that job has exceeded from the defined threshold as part of the compute observability. So users see that, okay, yeah, there is a summary available that, okay, the threshold has reached to a critical. This has been occurring for about 18 times. So let's say for evaluation, how many times is still in open state? The threshold value was 10, but the evaluate value was 20. So there is a very vast difference between what was what a threshold value versus what really evaluated. So in a way, alerts framework wise, there are certain segments within the system where we say that each area there would be a summary available, there would be an evaluation detail available. If there is a history for alerts, that would be available within the system. If we do tend to get some related links which provide context and take you to the other areas of the platform which gets relevant as part of let's say this particular alert which was generated, or any recommendation as part of this alert. Now the other thing which is important, see that it's just not for alerting, it's a mini incident manager in itself. Let's say if you don't have an incident manager available within your organization, what you can do, you can change the severity. Let's say if you see that this particular is not really of a medium, it's a very high priority. So you can change the status. You can assign it to somebody to say that, hey, this particular person is supposed to work on this alert because that person is the expert in looking after these kinds of alerts. So you can assign it to a person, or change the status. Let's say once you say that, hey, I'm good, this is resolved, we have done something, you change the status to resolved, and pass on the commentary that what was the reason behind there was a let's say alert which was generated. Other thing which we provide on the alert side is, let's say if you're getting too frequent notifications because of a particular alert, you can choose to mute it, so that and say that for a defined period of time, you don't want to get any notification, so that there is no noise, or let's say somebody is already working on it and still you're getting notified. You can come back to the system and say that, hey, please don't notify me for a while. So system will start suppressing the notification from the configured channels. So this is the alert framework which we have. This is one of the example. The other example I would like to take is, let's say, a data reliability alert within the system. Again, it has the same context, that there is a summary, there is a evaluation detail, but because it is generated from the reliability side, or let's say a failed data quality, there is a different context to it. So that's where the framework helps, right? Which is, even though the context is changing, your layouts, the information available is still comprehensible, right? So this is one of the things which I would wanted to showcase today. The other piece I would like to highlight is our recommendation framework. So from overall health perspective, or let's say there are certain recommendations which Acceldata provide out of the box. So let's say if you integrate your Snowflake as one of the data sources into the system, there would be bunch of recommendation which will be generated from Acceldata to say that, hey, if you apply this is the best practice provided by Snowflake, and this is what we recommend from Acceldata to make sure that your optimum, you're saving the cost, and your overall account health is in check. So guardrails plus some strategies to save, let's say, cost, etc. So those would be, let's say, part of the recommendation framework. So if you get into details, if there are actions available, let's say this is, let's say, a terminate Databricks cluster. So we identify that, hey, this is a long running cluster within the system. So what you can do about it? You can take a call whether you really want to, let's say, terminate this cluster. So in line, you'll have that action available. And if you, let's say, wish to terminate, once you click it, that's where the trick will happen. So in the background, we'll make sure that let's say the cluster is terminated, and you're not incurring any cost just because of it's continuously running. So yeah, those are the two areas I wanted to showcase today. Over to you, Samir, for story about spend and the operational intelligence piece.
Yeah, right. And so let me share my screen. It's visible. Awesome. Thank you. Right. And so earlier I mentioned about three things, right? Query optimization, that is workload optimization, warehouse optimization, or the cluster in case of Databricks cluster optimization. And then the third is data layout optimization, right? So in earlier releases, right, what we have seen, we had talked about Query Studio, which is our workload optimization feature. There are some enhancements. I'll go over it. We also had warehouse optimization, which kind of told you some of the recommendations we had on the warehouses, whether they are underutilized, effective, or overloaded, or something. But what I'm excited about, and what's new in this particular release that went out, is data layout optimization, right? I'm excited about this feature because what we have done is we have laid a framework here, right? And I'll go over some of the capabilities. But the possibilities that we can do with this framework, right? The future things that we vision to do with these things are going to help a lot, right? So data layout, data modeling has been a problem, not only on cloud data platforms, but databases forever, right? And there have been a lot of research solving those particularly for relational databases, right? And so we are now doing it, the same thing we are doing it for the cloud data platforms, which act very differently, right? Than the traditional relational databases and stuff. And so in this version, right, what we are able to achieve is, yes, we'll do is we will do some advanced query parsing techniques, right? And we are able to give you some of the insights like, okay, these were the top 5 accessed columns for a particular table. These were the top 5 filtered columns, right? Filtered columns meaning what were the columns under where clauses or join clauses, right? So these were the columns on which the query kind of acted on, kind of thing, right? Like these are the mostly the select columns kind of. And now what we can do is we can tell you which were the top filtered column, what is your clustering key. And if there is a mismatch like that, then there is a very high probability that you are having performance issues, right? And the solution could be, yeah, maybe for this table, you have workloads which are acting on this clustering key, so you want that to be efficient, but you can create materialized views right out of it with a separate filtered column. And so you can see here the average depth of this column is 8, but now if you look at the top filtered column, the average depth is 10, right? So more in this chart, if you see more bars on the right hand side, that is when you will see that yes, something needs to be done, right? We need to optimize those things, right? So that's we will be creating recommendations out of it, alerts out of it. Whenever we observe such mismatches, we will come up with the right partitioning strategy and clustering strategy, right? So that is something we'll be working on. And how do you come to these things, right? How do like, this is a particular table that I have selected, but there are multiple ways, right? So let me show you one of the way, right? So under performance and tables, what we have seen is what are the top 50 access tables, right? And along with the just telling you the count, we are also looking at it from this different perspective, right? How many partitions were scanned, right? By average, what is the average queue latency? And so you can basically start debugging it from this angle also. You click on the table and you will be taken to the clustering views for the tables. Also, what we have done is inside the query studio, right, where you are able to analyze the workload, slice and dice the workloads from different perspectives. Interesting thing that we got done is we are able to now parse the queries and are able to tell you the queries that are of interest, right? Certain workloads are doing group by operations, are doing join operations on a particular tables. That's when the data layout strategy becomes very important and very critical, right? And so sorry, I'm doing a quick time check here. I want to give ample time to our data reliability demo. So that's where, right? These are the tables on which you need to act on, right? So clicking on this table will take you to the data clustering view. So again, we are trying to provide different trigger points from where you should start accessing the tables. But Query Studio, what's new? We always had these fingerprinting capabilities, but now we have started adding different grouping capabilities, right? Look at it from the different users' perspective, which user is pending, and clicking on this user will filter all the queries only for that particular users. Now you can apply filters on top of it, figure out what are the long running queries that particular users have made, so on and so forth, right? So I'll stop here, give some time for Chris to share his.
Great, thanks, Samir.
Yep.
All right, so can everybody see my shared screen now?
Yes, Chris.
Good as a yes, yeah. Yeah, so I wanted to kind of walk through one of our big new features from the recent release. As we transition over to the data reliability side, it could certainly be the case that the user's interaction with the product starts at the alert, like Ankur showed. This all feeds into the same alerting framework. But I wanted to start in a slightly different area of the product to highlight one of our newest features. So, earlier we mentioned that the client ask for us was how to articulate how reliable an asset is. That was certainly an important ask for an individual data asset, but then we wanted to also work on packaging up that information for data stakeholders on a group of assets or even all the assets in the platform. So what we've recently released is what we call data reliability reports, which is really the introduction into the product of a set of capabilities helping us understand current and historical trending reliability within the assets in the platforms. And like I said, this could be the entire platform or something that makes up a business, an overall business purpose. So whether that's like a data product or assets that relate to a set of important dashboards. This starts to become a critical piece in messaging to those data stakeholders, both the health of their data assets, as well as what processes their team has put in place to assess that health and identify issues and hopefully show us an overall improving trend on reliability. So now as I walk through this report, we'll see that it aligns to a lot of the dimensions I spoke about earlier of how we apply checks in the product. And then one common theme is we're always trying to tie this back to that introduction of that overall reliability score as a reference point as you pivot through the variety of metrics we package up in this report. So kind of the first stage, the first step in this reporting is defining what's of interest to you. So users can start by exploring all of their data or then narrow into particular areas of interest, which they can then save as a report and return to understand how this is performing over time. So in my case here, in my example, I'm looking at essentially 18 assets that all fall under one of our sandbox demos regarding retail sales data and the associated pipelines. Now, once you have the report defined, there's kind of three core areas of investigation of reporting. So the first is understanding trends, the idea being to present an understanding of how these assets are performing over time. This can be done on the dimensions that we talked about. So kind of understanding that in my example here, over time, I'm seeing that, recently on this data, I've actually had some reconciliation problems. And that's actually what's causing my data reliability score to go down for this set of data assets. I can look at related trends, what policies are executing on these data assets, even down to, in the case of data quality, some of the more traditional categories of checks you do in data quality, so accuracy, completeness, uniqueness, those types of checks. Beyond the performance over time, the trending over time, we're also looking to summarize this performance across different slices of these data assets. So is there a particular data source that's having issues, or potentially a database or schema that's performing better or worse than others, or might not actually even have any coverage at all? And again, this kind of pivots into other types of metrics as well. So even getting down to, for example, the number of records we've evaluated and kind of how they've played out from either valid or invalid based on the checks we've done. And then the last piece is really kind of where you take your next step, and also summarizing all of what's actually encompassed in this report. So that being the data assets I'm looking at, and the policies that have been applied on them. So in the case of this reconciliation problem, for example, that I saw, I can quickly take a look and pivot over into, one of the reconciliation policies that has had some trouble and understand how it's performing over time. As I look in the times we've run this check, I can see there's both issues with tying out data elements as they pass through the pipeline, as well as actually, maintaining consistent record counts across the pipeline as I've gone along. Alternatively, I could get into that asset 360 I spoke about. So one of the assets we were reconciling here was a file early in the pipeline flow, and this pivot over here takes me to what I mentioned was the asset 360, which is really the overview of the asset, as well as the kind of the launching off point for all the capabilities of data reliability. So on the overview page here, I can see that this particular asset kind of mirrors that trend where it's had some issues lately, dropping in reliability. Because it's a file, things I'm tracking over time around the delivery of data are how many files I have, how many files are arriving over time. And, interestingly enough, kind of some of the issues I'm seeing correlate into actually some sporadic arrival of files that I might not be expecting here. So that's kind of the idea that the report's high level, and then you can pivot into all the many capabilities of reliability, both to apply checks as well as kind of assess how the current checks are going. So I did want to kind of take a time check, Preeti. Got through the reliability report. I wanted to make sure I saw that there was at least one Q&A question that we probably wanted to answer before closing out.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Great informative webinar. Appreciate all of your passing that along to all of us here. We have a couple questions. I don't know if we'll have time with them just because we are running a little bit late, but one of them is kind of what are the most useful and quickest time to value recommendations for Snowflake and Databricks? I think, Samir, that might be for you.
Yeah, right. So the quickest ones are actually around account configuration, right? Both for Snowflake, Databricks, like how are the users configured? Are they dormant users? Something related to the security of the users, network policies. Those are the easiest one, right? But the most impactful one are the ones that we give after analyzing, right? After running some analytics and workloads. Those are around the sizing of your compute, right? Warehouse clustering sizes. Those are the critical one. And unused tables, surprisingly, that is one of the most impactful, right? A lot of data goes unused and you need to know about it, right? Whether it's Snowflake, Databricks, we have seen the same thing.
Awesome, great. And then another quick question for you, Chris. You were just talking about the data reliability score, and then the question is kind of where does that come from? Is that something that comes as a recommendation that Acceldata gives you over time? Is that something that the users put in? Kind of just give a little bit of color.
Yeah, kind of the basis for that was, when we first rolled out our platform, we had a breadth of checks. I kind of went through like the 5 or 6 different dimensions that we're working on, and that's always kind of expanding. So the idea of the data quality score was, can we summarize that into one metric as kind of like a reference point to make decisions on to monitor over time. Today, that's kind of just built from an aggregation of our those dimensions all have their own scores, but we're obviously always looking at. We get requests to like, can I customize that? And so that's something we'll be exposing over time as. You can kind of tailor that to however you would like to define it based on what we're observing in the platform.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, so I think we're a little bit over time, so I want to be cognizant of, everybody who gave us their time so far. Everybody has a, very busy day. So thanks so much for our panelists. Preeti, thank you as well for your great presentation and for everyone who attended. We will be following up with a recording of this webinar. So if you have any questions, feel free to respond to that email. Again, thanks everybody. Appreciate your time and have a great day.